Thanks, Ian. I am very excited about our second round of the Genetic Counseling Fellowship and Research Training Program here at the University of Minnesota. Ian and I are going to be putting together this video for you today that's going to give you an overview of the program to get you thinking about, is this something that you're interested in participating for 2 years coming up soon. All right. So here at the University of Minnesota, we are excited. We also have a mascot that's a gopher. That's our cute little Goldie the gopher. So we are excited about this new opportunity. We've had an amazing couple years with our first two fellows, Kim and Emily, who you will be hearing from, as well as an opportunity to tell you about their experiences with the program. We have learned a lot, and we are continuing to improve the program for our next round, which we are going to be recruiting for this summer. Great. So to let you know a little bit about us, so I'm Heather Zierhut. I am the principal investigator on this study. And this study really came as a collective effort from our team here about thinking how we can improve genetic counseling for the field. We have a whole team, Ian, who's going to be talking to you more. So Ian, I'll let you introduce yourself before I move on.
Sure. I'm Ian MacFarlane. I work for the University of Minnesota's Genetic Counseling Training Program. I am a counseling psychologist who's been working with genetic counselors for the last 15, almost 20 years now, and really have been kind of adopted into the field and consider this kind of my professional home now, and really like bringing in aspects of measurement and advanced quantitative methods into the questions around professional development and how do genetic counselors get so good at what they do. So very excited for the opportunity to continue working with some of you in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. So as I think we both alluded to, we work together. So we are kind of a pair that leads this program. And with that, I bring kind of the genetic counseling practice. So I was a genetic counselor. I practiced for 8 years in pediatrics, specifically blood and marrow transplantation. And I've always had kind of a desire to do research. So even when I was in clinic, I was asking questions about, what was this patient's experience like? How could we do a better job? And with that, we also have a team member, Krista Redlinger-Grossi, who helps support our researchers, as well as Abram Noiser, who is our program coordinator and helps tremendously with a lot of the administrative and logistics pieces that we're going to be talking about. All right. So why GC first? So I talked a little bit about the why, but we are really passionate about integrating genetic counseling research into practice and strengthening and broadening the impact of the research that we do as genetic counselors and as those that support the genetic counseling field. So we have a goal of making the training really rigorous. And so we support a depth of understanding of research skills and really developing core research skills in the first year of your training. And obviously that goes on to the second. But there's also an element that we're interested in promoting mentorship and continuing to pass on research skills beyond this fellowship. And so we hope that by the skills that you will gain as a part of this, that you will then go on to mentor others and to pursue research endeavors outside of the University of Minnesota. And those could be at the academic institutions that you work for. You may work at a GC-related company, you may be in healthcare administration or insurance, or working in public health. And so we really do see this opportunity to go beyond the walls of where we are to really expand research opportunities in lots of different innovative ways. So here is our stated program goal. Our goal is to educate genetic counselor researchers to be independent leaders who mentor future genetic counseling researchers. And we will accomplish this in 3 main ways: through that rigorous curriculum that we were talking about, and then also through formal coursework and training modules. And we have a whole team of people that I think Ian will be telling you about in a little bit. We also take a very interdisciplinary approach where we are trying to make this research very applicable. And so if it's going to be research that's applicable, it's usually going to be collaborative and team-based as well. And so you're going to be working with us, but also teams of other researchers who are going to bring in an expertise to help shape your understanding and of the content as well as the methodologies. You will leave this fellowship with 2 manuscripts and a grant application, and we do see those as important outcomes for you to take with you and also to document your success through the 2-year program. We do hope to generate a diverse cohort of well-trained researchers. And so we use that term diverse or diversity in a very broad sense. And that can look like a lot of different ways, whether that's your identities that you're bringing to the program, the types of research you're interested in, or where your passions lie for the future of research and genetic counseling. And so we really just do see this broadly to bolster the field as well as the workforce in research.
Great. So I'm going to jump in now and start talking about the actual program, the fellowship itself. And just as kind of the real big picture, the first thing we want to just reemphasize is this is about practical research skills. We're going to be really thinking about how do you do this on the ground, right? We'll be providing some kind of theoretical background and practice and things, but like many things for genetic counselors, you can't really get a sense for what you're doing until you're doing it. And so, that's why we built in those 2 manuscripts that you will get out, right? So it's not just an academic kind of fellowship. You're really going to come out of this with practical skills. In addition to those research skills, we're going to have to talk about like academic job search. You'll do a practice job talk and some other professional development aspects. This is funded and it is a part-time position. So it'll be about a 50% position. There's a little bit of wiggle room that we'll talk about as we get a bit more into the details of the finances later. But there is the expectation that you will be doing this alongside other part-time work, either at your current institution with a kind of reduction in roles or however you want to work that out. But I just want to make clear that this is a part-time position. And so you will want to be probably keeping additional work later on. And again, we'll get into some more of the logistics of the position. But we often get questions about, this kind of physically, where does this take place? And we have the capacity to do remote, in person, or a bit of both. And we do think that the in-person part is important, but as part of that, creating the diverse body of researchers, right? We didn't want to limit ourselves to people who are either currently in Minnesota or who could relocate for 2 years, especially for a part-time position. And so much of our program is and can stay remote. If by happenstance, we happen to have 2 people who want to come to Minnesota for the full time, that will be lovely. But some of our trainers are also located outside of Minnesota, so there will be aspects of this that will be remote either way. Regardless of if we're more remote or in person, there is a 1 week each summer where you will come to the University of Minnesota. And this is built in, the travel funds are built into the grant. So we will cover that for you. And this is in the first year, we're going to really jumpstart and kind of intensively look at your research projects. In the second year, we also have some additional pieces built in around professional development and a job talk and kind of refining down those research projects as you're getting really close. So maybe the most exciting thing for Heather and I is to start talking about what kind of research are you actually going to be doing, right? And this is the really fun part of reading your applications, is seeing all the wonderful ideas that you're going to come up with. And it's really important that as part of this grant is funded to support genetic counseling research, right? So it really should be tied into the counseling aspect, the professional aspects of what you're doing. And so we have put together a list of broad topic areas under which you could locate a lot of different ideas. But we are going to ask you to map your ideas onto kind of one of these overarching categories. There's a lot of different ways to think about genetic counseling practice. Practice can include clinical work. Practice can include lab and industry work. Practice can include newborn screening and other public health efforts. It can include anything that we're doing as genetic counselors. I use the royal we. I'm not technically a genetic counselor. But some specific areas based on expertise that Heather and I bring would be things like integration into primary care and public health. There's a lot of really cool opportunities and research on that front. looking at clinical genetics, genetic counseling with underrepresented communities. Again, using a very broad interpretation of underrepresented or marginalized communities. Heather has a lot of background in universal and cascade screening research, particularly in FH, but that could be extended into other disease models and approaches as well. Heather and her colleague Deb Cragen, who is another one of our trainers, have an amazing R01 project looking at the genetic counseling processes result in outcomes as GC Pro. So there's opportunities to work with the genetic counseling skills checklist, which is a checklist of what in-session behavioral actions that genetic counselors take, and kind of working on developing and refining that. And as part of that grant, they have hundreds of recordings of genetic counseling sessions with live patients, real patients, that could be used for a variety of different research ideas. And then I also have a lot of interest in like the training and professional development angle. And so lots of different avenues of genetic counseling practice where students are involved, whether this is fieldwork opportunities, looking at training, how do we measure outcomes and competence among genetic counselors in training, how do we do supervision better? There's a lot of different areas there. And again, you just need to make some kind of connection to these overarching topics. So we'll leave that to your creativity and innovation as you think about that. Is there anything, Heather, you wanted to add to any of this piece here?
No, I think that was great, Ian.
All right. Then let's take a high level look again at the year one schedule. So year one and year two are structured a bit differently. So as we look at the year one module, I know there's a lot going on in this chart, and that's because we're going to keep you kind of busy, right? We want to make sure you're getting the most out of these 2 years. But across this, the top row here, this research training area, these are like the educational modules that you'll be completing roughly one a month. And this is where we have our excellent list of trainers, who I'm going to get into on the next couple of slides. But for example, you'll be doing a specific model looking at quantitative inquiry. So looking at statistical design and analysis. There's another one on qualitative inquiry, systematic reviews. But then we get also into some more kind of nuanced and more kind of topical areas. So for example, we have a month where you're looking at research in industry settings, or how to do research at public and population health. So again, we have a mixture of different approaches, but most of these are going to be didactic. You're going to be learning about skills and techniques, but you're also going to have application-based projects, right? So you'll be doing some reading, you'll be doing some exercises. But for example, our first two fellows, when they did their CBPR, community-based participatory research module, they got really galvanized about this, and they actually led putting together a manuscript on how CBPR can and maybe should be used in genetic counseling, especially when we're thinking about student or trainee projects, which you can find online under our two students. I won't shamelessly plug it too much more, but we're pretty proud of that effort. In addition to the research training modules, you're also going to be involved in some coursework. So we have a research seminar that you will be engaged in, both as a way to learn and as a way to help develop teaching and other academic preparation skills. And then we have a grant writing support that you're going to be able to access. It's not 7 months long. There's a summer version and a fall version, and some of when you would take that will depend on some individual variation in how things work with you in the fellowship. We're going to be working on those projects, those two manuscripts. One of those projects is going to be a systematic review, so you're going to get a chance to roll up your sleeves starting in May. And then we're also going to do another empirical original project. And so you can see, we're building in some lag time, and that you'll be working on these projects throughout. We've also got some events happening. where you're going to be working on NSGC committees. You'll be kind of sitting in on those meetings. So you'll be involved in kind of how leadership happens at an organizational level and thinking about that. And there's other pieces down here about some individual kind of development plans and things like that. And again, this is the timeline we used for the first cohort. We may make some little tweaks and changes and things based on lessons we learned, but this is a general overview of what's going to happen. Now I've been talking about this amazing group of trainers, and Heather and I both have. Let's just introduce you to them. So these are our 4 trainers who are affiliated with the University of Minnesota. We're very excited to have Dr. Luo, who will do clinical trials and biostatistics with you. Dr. Pratt does community-based participatory research, so she collaborates on both the CBPR training and the general qualitative inquiry training. Molly Bostrom will be leading the systematic review unit. And Rebecca Tryon is a genetic counselor, but also has a master's in bioethics and will be leading the ethics in research module towards the end of the year. In addition to our lovely U of M colleagues, we have brought in wonderful minds and wonderful scholars from outside of our walls as well. Colleen Kalishu from Genome Matters does our industry panel, industry module.
I
Carla,
have to correct you. It's Genome Medical. You combine the 2 companies.
oh, there we go. See, here's how I go. Genome Medical, thank you.
There we go.
We'll edit that out. And then Carla Magruder is at Color and works on the All of Us project, and she's going to talk about population health. Already mentioned Debbie Cragen from University of South Florida. She runs our implementation and dissemination module. Bob Dedrick, also from University of South Florida. Look, we'll be talking about measurement and how to think about measurement in terms of DEI, as well as other kind of on the ground when things get messy kinds of aspects of measurement. And Krista Lumpkins, who is University of Utah, will do our health communication. And she is also involved in the CBPR and is a highly skilled in qualitative research as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Heather to talk through year 2.
Thanks, Ian. I appreciated how you said that some of these specific dates on this are not in concrete, because it's true. As we all know in research, things can change and move around, particularly your projects. So in the first year you're starting your projects, you're coming up with your research question, you're designing the project, you may be starting to write a grant. And that grant, for instance, may come at a various different time points throughout, the first year or even to the second year. And so traditionally, though, you're going to still be working on or really digging into your project in the second year. So whereas you're spending a lot of time learning and doing those modules that Ian laid out, in the second year, you're spending more time with your data, with your research, with your projects. And so while you're doing that, we also have some other types of development activities. And this NCFDD, I'll talk about on another slide that will show you kind of the main overview, but this is a group who comes together to try to support faculty in various different scholarly activities. So that might be, how do you schedule your week? How do you prioritize your research? How do you create a writing plan? How do you think about mentorship in writing? And so they have these core different modules, which I'll show you, and you'll be doing one of those a month, and then we'll be debriefing in our one-on-one meetings with our one-on-one or our group meetings to talk about and process some of the information that you've learned from these learnings. You will, again, like I said, be working on your project as well as your systematic review, and these will ebb and flow depending upon your data collection, your data analysis. But this is where you'll start to have an opportunity to work with a team. So you might be paired with some undergraduates, for instance. So one of Emily's projects was working with an undergrad who was helping to abstract or read some of the papers for her systematic review and help to include or exclude. So she got to provide some mentorship there to an undergrad. Similarly, our fellows have been working with are paired with a master's student in the genetic counseling program to help watch them go through their project and kind of serve as an external committee member to those master's projects. And usually those are involved in content areas of expertise or simply areas where they're hoping to learn or to provide a little bit more of kind of that one-on-one mentorship that they can actually see us modeling, Ian and myself modeling through those interactions with the genetic counseling students. There's also an opportunity for an elective, and that might be, say you want to get more experience in quantitative methodology or in coding or in another type of analyses that we don't cover in our first 12 modules. This is an opportunity for you to take a course and to learn more. And that can be done in either semester, but we just have it laid out here in that first first term. You also are going to flip. So if you were going to be watching the NSGC Research Quality and Outcomes Committee, which has many different names, you might switch and do the Practice Guidelines Committee, which is the one that was in the first year. So one fellow is working with one committee and the other is working with the other, and it's just you flip-flop. And those are usually just monthly meetings, and you may be going to some of the subcommittee meetings, so a meeting here or there, but really watching the process of how do we put together guidelines as a field, which uses a lot of the different types of methodologies that you're learning, like systematic reviews, like evaluating the rigor of research, those types of things. And then how do we think of as a field, how we're going to value research and what is the research that is needed or needs to be promoted? So that's kind of some of the ideas around those committees and that work with the NSGC. You will also be doing another big area of learning in this year is thinking about how do we assess other people's research. And the Journal of Genetic Counseling has paired with us to help to show you kind of an inside look at the Journal of Genetic Counseling from the editor, J9 Austin, who is, as well as with us as mentors or peers, to look at publications that are being put in for submission to a journal, in this case, the Journal of Genetic Counseling. And how do you review that work? How do you document kind of what's going well with the research and what are ways that that publication can improve? And so you'll do 5 of those reviews that will be mentored with either Ian, myself, or Dr. Austin from the Journal of Genetic Counseling. We also have the NSGC meeting, the annual conference, and Ian, I can't remember if you said it in the beginning either, but we do have funding to support you to go to the NSGC meeting to present your work or just to do networking and mentor. And we will have an opportunity to also meet during that time in both the first and the second year. So that funding is also covered through the grant. And then
I forgot that perk in the first year.
okay, great.
Yes, it still happens in year 1 too.
Yep, perfect. And then some of the outcomes of year 2 is really when everything's kind of going to be coming to fruition. So say, for instance, you've now thought about, okay, how am I going to integrate some of this now back into my current job or a future job that I want to aspire to, given that I have this new developed set of skills. And to do that, we're going to help you think about how do you put together your kind of story and your research journey and your materials that you would need in order to do that. And so some of the typical ones that you need as a researcher in an academic setting would be a bio sketch, which is basically a summary as well as kind of evidence that you have met or gotten skills in a specific area and like what those areas are and how would you explain to others in a short 3 to 5 pages kind of what your history is and how it can be beneficial to a research project. You'll write an abstract for a meeting, and then you'll also put together a job talk, which is a specific type of presentation that leverages kind of some of the information that you've gathered from your research and could think about how it could be helpful for others in other types of roles or other types of jobs. You'll work on your mentorship map, which you'll be developing throughout, but really kind of thinking about your network and where your network will continue to grow. You'll write a research philosophy, which is a typical part of many job applications. And think about your research agenda that you want to create moving forward. And ultimately, you'll have those 2 manuscripts for submission as well. So that's the overview. Let's get into some of the details. So here is that core skill or core curriculum for the NCFDD. I'll just give you a second to read them over. But as you can see, they can run from, how to create your semester plan, which is kind of like a strategic plan for a certain designated amount of time, all the way to how do you say no? And really, how do you choose what you're going to say no to and what you're going to say yes to? 2, how do I think about conflict and how do I deal with stress and rejection? So as you can see, there's a lot of different types of ways that we think about skills in the work that we do. All right, next slide. We talked about the research toolkit, so I won't get into that again. You can keep going, Ian. We talked about working with students and mentoring of projects. I think you can work with undergrads, master's students. You might be working with other programs or with our program, like Kim did, but really you get a lot of opportunity. You also will have a committee. So I guess you can go to the next slide, Ian. So you are going to be building. So as you're climbing and gaining all of these skills, you will have others that will be helping to pull you up and to help you on that journey. And that will be Ian and myself. So one of us will be signed as your main research mentor, and that will be dependent upon the topic that you choose and kind of the area that your research is going based upon who we think can be best to support you in that specific research endeavor. And then beyond us, we will also be helping to match you with either one of the trainers, for sure one of the trainers, but maybe even beyond the list of trainers, other committee members at the University of Minnesota that can help to support your current research and work. So really building out that team that's going to help you, particularly in that second year, to move your research forward and to make sure that you can be successful at whatever you're setting out to do in the research realm within this 2-year period. So we will be evaluating, oops, Banksy is saying hi. We'll be evaluating your research project progression as you go, and Ian and I are particularly good at creating timelines and progression so that you will be constantly making progress. We'll also be choosing topics and projects that we know that you can be successful in completing over this time period. All right. I guess the other thing that I should mention, because this is a common question, is can I do research that's not based in the University of Minnesota? Can I do it, say, in my current work environment? And the answer is yes, but we have a lot of caveats. And that is, things like the IRB. Are we able to, work together collaboratively to ensure that we can also be research, helping you with that research? So are there going to be types of data agreements that we'll have to think about? Do we have the expertise to be able to, mentor you on that? Do we have established relationships with others that could? And so there's a lot of conversations that can happen. And we recommend having those conversations before you apply or even during the application process, because that could really influence your decision to if you think that this would be a good fit for you, not if you have a specific thing that you're most focused on in your role. And we do see them as being mutually beneficial. So we do really want to try to make it work. If we can. We just are very aware of some of the logistical hurdles that can come about, and we just want to make sure that we're realistic in giving you what you would need to be able to do both the fellowship and the work that you would hope to do with your current employer. We have a lot of networks and can connect you, as I was kind of alluding to, and we'll help you to develop those at NSGC. So for instance, last year we came up with a list of people that Emily and Kim were interested in talking to, and they made those connections and were able to meet with people in person, which is always great. We do encourage people to come to local meetings that we have here in Minnesota that are available through a hybrid. And we have, again, just ways that we can encourage you to think about expanding your research network. And that's one of the things that we'll really work with you on when you're in the fellowship. Application to you, Ian.
So I'm going to jump in and start talking about, so you're interested. Great, we've sold you. Now what? And so let's talk a little bit about who's eligible for the fellowship. So again, this is a genetic counseling training opportunity. So to be eligible, you have to have completed a master's degree from an ACGC accredited training program. You have to be certified or eligible for certification. We ask or require that you are 2 years post-graduation from your training program. This is to help you get out in the field, so you're likely going to be past board exam and certification and licensure and some of those things, and are able to focus more on the research side. Also, having been out in doing your work for a couple of years gives you lots of opportunities to see ideas for research questions that might be really relevant to your particular professional development, your career track, things like that. Being in the field can be a wonderful place to come up with really kind of important questions that need to get sorted out. If your state or area in which you are practicing requires a license, then we will require verification of your current licensure status. And lastly, as this is funded by the NIH or NGHRI, we are only able to offer this opportunity to U.S. citizens and permanent residents. And so that's just a limitation of the funding, but that's what we have to do. Now, we often get a lot of questions about, okay, that sounds great. I can check those boxes, but how do I stand out, or what are you really looking for? And so here are some of the characteristics that Heather and I brainstormed for successful applicants. One of the things we're really looking for is effective communication. Research is really important, but if we can't communicate that research out, then it's not going to have its maximum effect. So we want to be able to see both written and oral communication skills. And we'll talk a little bit about in the actual application materials where you're going to be able to demonstrate these skills and proficiencies. Research these days is done in collaborative teams. The days of single author publication are kind of over. And so you're going to have to be able to work effectively in teams, especially interdisciplinary teams. And teams where people have a variety of skills, disciplines, and viewpoints. So being able to tell and show us kind of what you've been able to do in teamwork and as a leader is going to be really help your application stand out. While you have to have those teamwork skills, you're also going to be doing a lot of independent work. And so you've got to be somebody who's able to be self-motivated and able to self-pace. Heather and I will work with you to create and tweak timelines as we go through, but ultimately you're going to be the one responsible for making sure you hit deadlines, making sure you're balancing the fellowship work with your other employment opportunities, and staying on track. We get it, life happens, we will help you adjust as we go through, but it is important that you're able to thrive in some independent work. You will quickly learn about Heather and I, if you don't know it already, that we love coming up with ideas and being creative and thinking about how would we measure that? How would we study that? Right. And so, that's the kind of curiosity and creativity we're looking to foster and looking to help you kind of build. But it really helps to be someone who sees ideas, sees questions, and starts thinking about it. So it's both that curiosity and the creativity. There's a lot of creativity in science and research. You have to be able to think outside the box and come up with new and innovative ideas. And Heather and I will help push you on those things. But the more you can demonstrate this idea of, oh, I've got this really cool idea. You don't have to have all the details worked out, right? That's what Heather and I and the rest of the trainers are here to help you with. But giving us a glimpse into that creativity and how curious you are about your surroundings. And then lastly, I mentioned leadership a little bit already, but part of one of our express goals of the fellowship, if you think back to earlier in the presentation when Heather was talking, right, is really about we want to keep this ball rolling of generationally creating more and more high impact and highly skilled genetic counseling researchers. So thinking about how have you been a leader, whether that's a formal leadership position, whether that's mentorship you've undertaken, whether that's leading by example. There are lots of different ways to be a leader. So tell us about the different ways you've done that, and you would see being a leader and a mentor for future researchers as part of your kind of vision for how this is going to fit into your career. With that, I'll turn it back over to Heather to talk about some of the logistical aspects of the application.
Yes, great. So easy peasy. You will go to the University of Minnesota Find a Job. This actually, Ian, I think is our old ID unless you updated it. Sorry.
I did not. I
Okay,
will
so
put the new ID up.
great. We'll put the new ID up on the website. So as long as you can get to the GC First website, which you will have had to get there in order to see this information video, so you will be there. We will have a specific ID, and when you go into the University of Minnesota HR website, you can Google, genetic counselor. That may pull it up, but if you have the specific ID number, that gets you for sure to the right job post. So search with the ID. That's usually the best way to get there. When you actually are looking at the job application itself, there's four main parts. So the first is going to be your demographics, your background information that you will fill out. That will be, a typical piece that you will input into the computer. And then you'll be asked to upload 3 kind of PDFs or Word docs. So the first is a curriculum vitae or a CV. And that's going to have information on your education, your certification. Please put your license or multiple licenses if you're working in multiple states on that document. Include things like if you have any publications, what those publications are, if you've worked on any grants, what those grants are. And really just give us a feel of who you are as a person through that CV in regards to your academic and scholarly work. Your research statement then and personal statement will have specific questions that you will fill out that we've predetermined. And so Ian, you can go to the next slide. So the first with your personal statement is both of these should be about 2 pages. The personal statement has, I believe, 5 questions. So the first 3 here are kind of broad. How did you become interested in research and genetic counseling? And then get more specific as to things like how did you describe a time that you worked collaboratively on a project and the ways that you managed that collaboration to lead to a successful product. And please here just include specifics, give us examples, tell us more and give us kind of a story of these different answers so that we can actually look at the things that you did and how they contributed to these specific questions. As you get to your research statement, and again, these questions will be available on the GC First website, so no need to write them down. We'll have them posted on the website. The research statement has 3 questions, and there will be a corresponding list of research topics that you can read and review. And then we're going to ask you to do an exercise, as Ian was talking about, where you're going to describe which of these that you think you would like to choose to think about creating a research question for and thinking about how you would address that. So this is your opportunity to get creative and to get passionate about kind of some of these genetic counseling issues that affect our profession and how you might think about asking questions about them. And this is also kind of a visionary exercise because you'll also get to think about your own personal growth and how you can envision seeing this fellowship as being beneficial to your future. So those are kind of the writing portion. What happens next? Okay, so your application will be due on July 15th. That will be the date that we will collect all the applications from the website. Well, the day after will be the day that we will collect them all from the website. And then we will review them collectively and we will offer interviews that will take place over the month of August. We hope to be able to give out offers the end of August to mid-September. The offers will be, as Ian said, a part-time position. They will start off as a 0.5 or basically a 50% FTE position. However, we may have some ability to go negotiate less time. So if you currently have a job and you would prefer to say stay 0.6 at that job and do 0.4 for the fellowship, we can go down time. Depending upon if one of the fellows goes downtime, we may be able to go up slightly to a 0.6, depending upon how much of a budget we have for the fellowship. So your offer will be for a 50% position, but we can potentially negotiate that slightly. So be prepared to think about what would be, if it's not a 0.5 position, would you prefer a 0.6 or 0.8? And then we'll see if we have availability to do that or not when we're in the actual offer phase. Benefits are not offered for a part-time position at the University of Minnesota. So we do have a way within the grant to help supplement the cost of your benefits up to approximately $4,000. And we do have offerings through our HR department to pay through the University of Minnesota, or those could be if you have a job that already pays for benefits, then I think it would make the most sense to stay with that job with the benefits. And then you wouldn't have the opportunity then you wouldn't use the $4,000. So this is a common question that comes up. And again, it's something that we will work through with you depending upon your specific situation. We're doing all of this really soon. It seems like because the position doesn't start until January. And we're doing that because I know that there are a lot of things that can be moving parts within people's jobs and personal lives as they go to think about transitioning to this type of role. So you will have some time before we make this full transition. And we can potentially work with your current employer to kind of determine what might be best. However, this is a University of Minnesota employment opportunity, and we are open to potentially other types of contracts, but we cannot guarantee that other types of contracts would work or would be negotiable depending upon the various different terms of those negotiations. So the start date is January 1st of 2025, and it's a 2-year fellowship with an end date that's tentatively December 31st, 2026. And that's because our grant technically ends about 3 months before that. And so we have funding to go up to that. And then what happens is you ask for a no-cost extension. And if that's granted, then we're able to move for the last 3 months. This is generally a very easy process that we can plan to do, and we'll be doing it as soon as we can based upon the grant status. So we are going to presume that we will be able to do the full 2 years, but just want to put this little caveat here that this is, again, dependent upon a couple different administrative things that we need to do as we go through the end of this grant. Now, Ian, I know all of this is a little confusing. Is there anything that you want to like jump in and clarify, or things that would be helpful to add?
I don't think so. But just as a heads up, you will have the opportunity to meet with Heather and/or I one-on-one to clarify some of these questions. So if talking it out with one of us would be helpful, there will be opportunities for that.
I think that gets us to our next slide. All right, so to do that, we're going to have a Google form on the website where you can click if you are interested in being added to our potential applicant list. And once we have that applicant list, we will send you an email that will give you information on how to sign up for these one-on-one meetings. So as we said, stay in touch. You can always email us directly as well if that's not working or you run into any issues. We are more than welcome to forward you the information and ask questions. If a meeting isn't necessary and an email would suffice, that's perfectly fine too. So our emails are publicly available on the website as well. So we really do look forward to hearing from you and seeing your application, and please do reach out.